The traditional full-featured cell phones are, as you know, are pretty much driving the cell phone market today. And if you actually look at the hard numbers of cell phones sold in calendar 2008, worldwide we sold about 1.2 billion cell phones last year. Now, as you can imagine, that's a pretty huge number. The problem at the moment is that, as you know, towards the end of the year, the numbers actually decreased, and going to the beginning of the first quarter of this year, the numbers for handsets sold were actually down by about 100 to 150 million. So at this stage of the game, we don't have a hard number of what the unit shipments will be for 2009, but we believe that it will reach at least 1 billion, but it will be off in 2009 compared to the way it was at least in 2008. Having said that, the second segment here that has shown some interesting growth is what we call smartphones. And I'll get into the whole smartphone war and where that fits in a minute. But basically, smartphones, we define as phones that have 2.5 to 3.5 inch screens, and more importantly, they have an operating system and can handle applications. So smartphones, for example, are iPhones, Blackberries, Windows Mobile 6.5, potentially the new Palm Trio, Android phones, etc. Another category that's really interesting is MID, in the sense that this is something that Intel has pushed to market. The 3 to 5.7 inch screen. Some of them can be subsidized, but the idea was to try to put the internet in your pocket. The problem with, since Intel introduced this, Apple came out with their iPhone, and you saw other products that fit in this segment, and the reality is smartphones bring the digital internet to your pocket. And so all of a sudden, kind of MIDs are in a big question mark as far as whether they make sense or even survive. The newest category of products is called netbooks. This has been a very hot category, launched in fall of 2007 by Asus. Since then, Acer, Dell, HP, Lenovo, pretty much everybody has moved in. And just by point of reference, in calendar 2008, we sold approximately 10 million netbooks last year. Forecast for this following year is, if you look at both Gartner and IDC, forecasts suggest that it'll be somewhere around 20 to 21 million netbooks in this calendar year. So this is a solid calendar, a category, and it's growing. This is the brand new category that has just been introduced, and we actually believe will be a very, very significant. And I'll get into that in a lot of detail in a minute, and then we'll go to the panel. But this is a fairly brand new thing that most people don't even know about. But what happened here, and the dynamics of what happened, is the netbooks, as they've been introduced to the market, actually has had a very negative impact on the PC business. As you know, netbooks did two things. It caused the repricing of laptops in general, and more importantly, it lowered the average selling prices of existing laptops. And it just had a devastating effect as far as the consumer market, because all of a sudden consumers were conditioned to believe that they could go out and buy a laptop for $300. And the first generation of netbooks actually had a lot of returns for various reasons. The biggest reason because it had Linux on it. But once Acer and their partners, or Asus and partners, put Windows XP on it, then netbooks began to move up. The problem with netbooks, as you know, is they are actually limited in functionality. And they're actually an accident from Intel's standpoint. The Atom processor that Intel introduced was designed to go in this category of products and was to go in this direction. What happened is, all of a sudden, Intel got demand for netbooks, and the only chip that they had that could even fulfill that need happened to be the Atom. And I should say, at that price point, right? So in the meantime, Ottolini and the guys at Intel realized that this was an issue, and they needed to figure out how to control the growth of this, and more importantly, to launch a category that was still netbook-like, but in reality gave the consumers better power, more processing power, relatively good battery life, and even bigger screens. And we're in a juncture right now where you're just about to see the big push. The first products on the market, the first one actually that shipped is the HP DV2. Acer introduced a series the other day based on the ULV processor starting at 11.6-inch screens. And these particular models have a spec. They have to have a ULV, ultra-low voltage processor. They have to be, actually they've extended it now to be 11.6, 12.1, and 13.3. They need to weigh under 3.5 pounds. And more importantly, they need to be in a price range of $5.99 to $9.99 to $10.99. Now, if you kind of read into that, what's actually happening is that the industry says and looks at this and they say, this is nice, we all have to have something here. Fact of the matter is, I got 3 points of margin and I can't do a business here. What they're going to try to do is start shifting everybody up into this category of low-cost, thin, and light, because even though it's more expensive, it has better margins. It also is better for Intel from a fab standpoint. But more importantly, what you really end up is taking the consumer who might be buying a low-cost, a netbook at say $449 and saying, Mr. Netbook person, for another $100, another $200, I'm going to give you double memory, double the processing, 2 more inches of screen light. What would you think if we do that? And the industry is all pretty much in line, so you'll have a whole slew of products moving in that direction, going to, starting with back to school, and heavily ramping up into Q4. The other categories that are quite important that will still exist is the value notebook category. These are the 13.3 to 15.6, sometimes 16-inch. The big thing with that, with this, is that they tend to be 4 pounds, 5 pounds bulky. So you'll have still the larger systems. They'll still be in low cost. They will use some bigger processors. But the reality is this is really not really a mobile product per se, as a netbook is, as a low-cost thin and light. Other products that will continue to be in the category, although it will be a shrinking category, is 15 to 17-inch gaming and specialty notebooks. And then we have one other category actually that kind of doesn't really fit here in this pricing model, but we call it electronic jewelry. It's the products in the ultralight categories that specifically went to businesses, where in fact the guys that were buying them, they were buying them for, or IT was buying them, was for the folks that were the president of the company and or the bigger mucky mucks who said, I want it. It was more than traditional IT, but they wanted it because it was light, real classy looking, and this ultralight category was okay. The problem was it was in the $1,400 to $2,300. The fact is, what we call the Netbook Effect, the Netbook Effect basically said that laptops over $1,000 are basically dead. You're just not going to be able to sell them, whether it be to consumers or even to IT. It's over. Those days are over. So the industry has to adjust.